Imagine this scenario for a second. You've been interviewing for months, right?
Oh, yeah, the endless hiring loop.
Exactly. And you finally find the absolute perfect software engineer. I mean, they crushed the technical interview, they completely get your product vision, and they are, ready to start tomorrow.
A total unicorn.
Right. But there is just one massive catch. You are a mid-sized company based in Boston, and this dream candidate, well, they live in Berlin.
Ah, yeah. That is where the dream usually ends.
It really does. Suddenly you're staring down like a 6-month delay and potentially $50,000 in legal fees just to set up the basic infrastructure to hire this one person. Because the internet, it tells us the professional world is entirely borderless
Right,
now.
right. Everyone says it's a global village.
Yeah, but the moment you try to actually pay someone across the globe, that beautiful illusion just completely shatters. You just hit a brick wall of international employment paperwork, tax codes, and compliance laws.
And that brick wall is incredibly unforgiving. I mean, it's a total bureaucratic labyrinth. Most companies, especially those outside the Fortune 500, they're simply not equipped to navigate the labor laws of a foreign country on their own.
No, not at all.
So the momentum of a great hire just dies in the administrative backlog. It's a huge problem.
Which is exactly why we are doing this deep dive today. Our mission here is to look at a platform that claims to be the ultimate map to that labyrinth. We're looking at Deel.
Right.
We really want to figure out, is this platform which promises to solve these global hiring headaches, is it genuinely the right fit for managing your international team? Or is it just another layer of expensive software masking a problem it can't actually fix?
It's a very valid question to ask.
Okay, let's unpack this because Deel isn't exactly new. I mean,
Right.
they launched back in 2018, and they have aggressively adapted to this massive shift toward remote work that we've all been living through lately.
Yeah, they really caught that wave perfectly.
They did. We are talking about a platform that now serves over 20,000 companies.
What's fascinating here is that Deel is attempting to do something much more profound than just, offering a slick HR dashboard or a complex payroll calculator.
How so?
Well, when you really analyze their model, they are fundamentally removing the geographic barriers to talent acquisition. They are taking the deeply localized, physically bound concept of employment and attempting to globalize it, but without breaking the local laws of the host country in the process.
Right.
We are talking about a major paradigm shift here, from a localized talent pool to a genuinely global one. And that completely reshapes how businesses strategize their growth.
Right. I get the big picture, but I want to get into the nuts and bolts of that because it's very easy for a tech company to just slap hire globally in minutes on their landing page, right?
Oh, absolutely. Marketing is easy.
Exactly. It's a completely different beast to actually execute that legally. So how do they pull this off? You see this claim that Deel allows companies to employ workers in over 150 countries without the hiring company ever needing to set up local business entities. Let's break that down a bit.
Yeah. To understand the solution, we really have to understand the core problem first. So traditionally, the biggest roadblock to hiring abroad is something called permanent establishment risk.
Permanent establishment risk.
Okay, what is that exactly?
It's really just a fancy legal way of saying a foreign government looks at your one remote worker in their country and decides, your company now has a taxable presence here.
Oh, I see. So they want a piece of the pie.
Exactly. In the past, to avoid catastrophic penalties, if you wanted to hire someone full-time in Germany, you had to incorporate a formal business entity in Germany. You had to plant a legal flag there, which means hiring local lawyers, opening foreign bank accounts, registering with local tax authorities. I mean, that takes months and drains capital. It's like trying to plug a 120-volt American appliance directly into a 230-volt European wall socket.
That is a great way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, without an adapter, you are going to fry the entire system. Your company just isn't built to process German labor law. So how does Deel act as that adapter? Mechanically speaking, what is actually happening when they talk about using local compliance experts?
They utilize a mechanism known as becoming the employer of record, or EOR. Every single one of those 150 countries has its own hyper-specific rules.
Right, like totally different baselines for everything.
Yeah. We are talking about mandatory paid leave, specific overtime multipliers, severance payout structures, pension contributions. It's a staggering amount of data to keep track of.
I can only imagine.
So by acting as the employer of record, Deel has already gone into those countries and set up their own fully compliant legal entities.
Oh, wow, I see. So legally, like on paper, my dream engineer in Berlin doesn't actually work for my Boston company at all. They work for Deel's German entity.
Precisely.
Yeah.
On paper, Deel is the legal boss. They take on the complete legal liability of the employment contract.
That is wild.
But in practice, that engineer logs in every day, they join your Slack channels, and they build your product. You manage their day-to-day work, but you are effectively renting Deel's corporate shell and their legal compliance framework.
So you get all the benefit of the worker without any of the red tape.
Exactly. And this accelerates the timeline from 6 months to literally a few days because the local tax and labor infrastructure is already pre-built and waiting for you.
That is a massive paradigm shift. You get to focus entirely on the output of the employee while the platform focuses on, keeping you out of international tax court.
Which is where no founder wants to be.
Definitely not. But that transition, moving from this abstract legal framework to the actual day-to-day operation, it brings up a huge question for me. What does this actually feel like for the people using it?
You mean inside the actual software?
Yeah. If we look inside the dashboard, what is the user experience for management versus the employee? From what I'm seeing in our research, the core value proposition really rests on 3 pillars, right? Automated compliance, centralized management, and flexible payment options.
Yeah, those 3 pillars are where the legal theory becomes operational reality. The automated compliance means that the moment you generate an employment contract in the system, it automatically pulls in the localized regulations we just discussed.
So it won't let you mess up.
Right. If a country requires 30 days of paid leave, the contract templates literally won't let you offer 15. That immediately reduces the risk of costly audits or penalties down the line. And then you have centralized management.
Which, I'll be honest, sounds like a bit of a corporate buzzword, but I imagine it solves a very specific headache for internal operations.
It does. It solves the classic silo effect. In most mid-sized companies, HR has one massive spreadsheet tracking who lives where, and finance has a totally disconnected system for running payroll.
Oh, I've lived that nightmare. It's awful.
Right. But with centralized management, both departments are looking at the exact same dashboard. HR sees the contract compliance, finance sees the invoice generation, and the tax withholding, all unified in one place.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting for me. I want to talk about that 3rd pillar, the flexible payment options. The platform allows companies to pay their global workforce in their local currencies.
Yes, which is a huge feature.
Now, on the surface, that is pitched as a neat administrative finance feature, but I want to push back on the idea that this is purely about bookkeeping. Paying people in their local currency without them having to ask for it isn't just a finance feature, it's a morale feature.
That is a very perceptive way to frame it. The psychological impact of payroll is often totally ignored by tech companies.
Right, because put yourself in the shoes of that remote worker. If your company insists on paying you in US dollars, but you live in London or Tokyo, you are the one bearing the entire burden of the exchange rate fluctuations.
You take on all that risk.
Exactly. You are paying the bank conversion fees. You are doing the mental math every single month just to figure out if your paycheck will actually cover your rent this time, because the value of your salary literally changes every 30 days.
It's wildly unpredictable for them.
It is exhausting. And frankly, it makes you feel like an afterthought. It makes you feel like a second-class citizen compared to the core team sitting at headquarters.
I completely agree. If we connect this to the bigger picture, maintaining a diverse global team successfully requires making remote workers feel as secure and as valued as the people sitting in the home office.
Absolutely.
Worker satisfaction isn't just about the tasks they do, it's about the friction surrounding their livelihood. When a platform steps in and handles payroll seamlessly in the employee's local currency, it completely removes a massive point of chronic anxiety. It builds foundational trust.
Yeah, that trust is huge.
And when you are managing people you might never actually meet in person, trust is the most valuable currency you have.
It tells the worker, hey, we value you enough to adapt to your world rather than forcing you to adapt to ours. But, and this is a very significant but here.
Uh-oh, here it comes.
Yeah. If the employer of record model is so flawless, if it builds all this trust, removes the friction, and shields you from legal risk, why wouldn't every single company in the world just adopt this automatically?
Right.
This leads us straight into the reality check, because there are major drawbacks, and the first one usually comes with a substantial dollar sign attached.
Yes, the financial barrier is quite steep.
Hmm.
You have to remember, you are not just paying for a software license. You are paying for global legal indemnification. And that comes at a premium.
Right. It's not just a flat $50 a month fee. You have subscription fees, but then you also have transaction costs, currency exchange margins, and per employee monthly charges that can be what? Upwards of $500 or $600 per full-time worker?
Easily. Sometimes more, depending on the region.
That scales up incredibly fast. If you are a bootstrapped startup trying to extend your runway, adding a hefty monthly premium just for the privilege of paying your people might actually break your entire business model.
It really is a double-edged sword. You are essentially trading your financial capital for administrative speed and legal safety. For a Series B company with $50 million in the bank, that is an incredibly easy, rational trade to make.
Because speed is everything to them.
Exactly. But for a self-funded small business, that is an agonizing calculation. It might actually be cheaper, at least in the short term, to hire contractors directly and just accept a certain level of compliance risk rather than paying an EOR platform.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But there is another limitation to this system, and it's not financial at all. It is legal.
Exactly. Because the legal landscape of international labor isn't static, it's constantly shifting. I think a lot of founders look at Deel and think it's a magic wand. They think they can just click hire and wash their hands of any ongoing responsibility.
That is a very dangerous assumption.
It is. It's more like, okay, earlier I used the adapter analogy, but let's look at it like navigation software in a car. Deel is your GPS and your lane assist. It makes the drive a lot safer, it maps the route, but you are still the one behind the wheel. If the road washes out, you can't just blame the GPS.
This raises an important question about the limits of outsourcing in general. Platforms like Deel aim to make compliance as frictionless as possible, but a company cannot simply abdicate its ultimate responsibility.
Right. You can't outsource being a manager.
Exactly. You cannot outsource your corporate culture or your internal policy enforcement. Let's say a specific country suddenly passes a sweeping law changing the definition of a freelancer versus a full-time employee.
Which happens all the time.
Right. Deal's system will absolutely flag that change. They will update the contract templates. But your company is still the one that has to look at that freelancer, realize they no longer fit the legal definition, and make the hard internal decision to either upgrade them to full-time status or let them go.
So the software alerts you to the fire, but it doesn't grab the extinguisher for you.
Exactly.
Which brings us perfectly to how this actually plays out in the real world. Because theoretical pros and cons are great, but to really understand where this tech breaks down, we need to look at actual case studies of companies stress testing the platform.
Let's do it.
Let's start with the ideal scenario, the big win.
Sure. So a classic success story from our sources involves a fast-growing tech startup based in San Francisco. They desperately needed senior engineering talent, but they were completely priced out of their own local market.
Typical San Francisco problem.
Very typical. So they utilized Deel to rapidly onboard a whole team of developers across Eastern Europe.
Okay, so it's the quintessential geographical arbitrage playbook. You take a high cost of living headquarters and tap into an incredible, more affordable talent pool halfway across the world.
Precisely. And by integrating the EOR platform, they offloaded the terrifying complexity of incorporating in multiple Eastern European nations. This allowed their incredibly lean, I think it was a two-person internal HR team.
Wow, just two people.
Yeah, just two people. It allowed them to stay laser-focused on actual product development and team integration, rather than drowning in foreign tax paperwork.
That's amazing.
The end result was a reported 30% increase in overall development productivity. And they attribute that directly to the diverse skills of their new international team, coupled with the massive operational cost savings of not having to hire a fleet of international lawyers.
A massive textbook win. They expanded their talent pool, saved their runway, and boosted their output.
Yeah.
But then, we have to look at the contrasting case study, because I think it reveals so much more about the realities of this software.
Yeah, the friction points are always more revealing.
Exactly. We have a marketing agency based in London. They use Deel to hire a really critical executive-level employee in Brazil. But despite using the platform, they still ran into a massive wall of paperwork, local tax regulation disputes, and ultimately severe payroll delays that caused a lot of team frustration.
Wait, how does that even happen?
It seems counterintuitive, right?
It seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah. If Deel is the employer of record and they guarantee compliance, how does a London agency still end up failing to pay their Brazilian employee on time?
Well, because, as we noted earlier, software is only as good as the human processes built around it. What this case study highlights brilliantly is that while technology enhances management, Success entirely hinges on balancing that technology with internal HR knowledge.
So it was a user error.
Basically,
Huh.
yes. The labor laws in Brazil are notoriously dense. They have unique requirements like the 13th month salary bonus, really complex severance funds, and very strict mandatory union tax contributions based on the specific job title.
Oh, wow. So it's not just a flat income tax you can just deduct. There are layers of structural benefits that have to be routed perfectly.
Exactly. And Deel's localized software in Brazil actually knew all of this. The platform flagged the requirements and requested the necessary documentation and classifications from the London agency to process the payroll correctly.
Okay, so the system did its job.
It did. But the London agency assumed the software would handle absolutely everything autonomously. They didn't have anyone on their internal team who understood even the basic broad strokes of Brazilian labor expectations.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So when the Deel platform asked for clarification on union classification to route the taxes, the London team didn't know how to answer. They ignored the prompts, the documentation stalled out, and because the platform cannot legally process a non-compliant payroll, the system just bottlenecked.
It's the GPS analogy again. The GPS told them to turn left to avoid the toll booth. They just ignored the screen, drove straight into the barrier, and blamed the car.
That is exactly what happened. The takeaway for anyone listening is that you cannot fire your HR department just because you bought global hiring software. Companies must still invest time in training their internal teams.
That makes total sense.
You don't need your London HR director to be a certified expert in Brazilian tax law, but they need to be educated enough to communicate effectively with the platform's local experts. They need to understand what a 13th month bonus is so they can at least budget for it.
Right.
When there is a gap in that fundamental internal knowledge, the human workflow breaks the software. And as we discussed earlier, nothing destroys that delicate trust with a remote worker faster than a delayed paycheck due to administrative incompetence.
Nothing. It completely shatters their psychological safety. I mean, they are sitting in Sao Paulo wondering if the London office is going bankrupt, when in reality, someone in London just didn't fill out a union form on a dashboard.
Exactly. It's a completely unforced error.
So, taking the lessons learned from the San Francisco triumph and the London stumble, we need to guide you, the listener, on how to actually apply this to your own business. So, what does this all mean? What is the strategic verdict for your team?
Well, you have to look at your own specific situation.
Right. If you are looking at your own P&L and your own growth charts, there are really 3 key decision factors you need to evaluate before jumping into a platform like this. First up, regulatory compliance.
Yeah, this comes down to the scale of your geographical footprint. You have to ask yourself, is your team spanning enough different countries to actually warrant this level of heavy infrastructure?
Like, where is the tipping point?
Well, if you are a U.S. company with 50 employees in Texas and you just want to hire one single freelance designer in Canada, you probably do not need a massive, expensive global EOR platform. A simple contractor agreement might totally suffice.
Save the money.
Right. But if you have 20 employees spread across 6 totally distinct regulatory environments, Spain, Japan, Colombia, Germany, then the compliance risk multiplies exponentially. At that scale of fragmentation, the platform's value skyrockets.
It's about recognizing when the administrative pain outgrows your internal capacity. Okay, so the second factor is cost efficiency, which really just requires you to sit down and do the hard math.
Always do the math.
Always. You have to compare the recurring subscription fees and transaction markups of Deel against your alternatives. What is the actual cost of doing this payroll and compliance in-house? What is the hourly rate of the external legal consultants you'd have to hire every single time you expand into a new territory?
It adds up fast.
It does. Deel will almost certainly save you time, but you have to ensure that time saved actually translates to a net positive for your specific cash flow.
And the third factor is flexibility. You need to evaluate the fluidity of your workforce. Does your specific business model benefit from being able to easily switch workers between being independent contractors and full-time, legally protected employees?
That's a good point. Not every business is structured the same way.
Exactly. Some businesses, especially in media or tech, have highly elastic structures. They spin up massive teams for a 9-month project and then they scale right back down. If your company requires rapid adaptation to changing talent needs across borders, having a single platform that standardizes the onboarding of both temporary contractors and permanent global employees is a massive strategic advantage.
It just streamlines the chaos.
It really does.
So what does this all mean for you? It means that before you look outward for a software solution, you really have to look inward. Before you sign a contract with any EOR platform, you need to engage in deep conversations with your existing team about their current remote work
This
experiences.
is so crucial.
Talk to the developers, the designers, the managers who are already dealing with whatever patched together systems you currently use. Do they feel secure? Are they losing money on exchange rates? Is onboarding a total nightmare? Finding out if a platform like Deel actually solves your team's real lived friction points is just as important as whether it fits your quarterly budget.
I view the final decision as a comprehensive strategic alignment test. Implementing a tool this powerful isn't just about solving today's immediate paperwork headache.
No, it's a long-term play.
Right, it's about asking, does this platform fundamentally align with your long-term strategy for scaling? If your CEO's vision is to triple your international workforce in the next 2 years, the legal and operational infrastructure you decide to build today matters immensely. You have to be honest about whether this genuinely enhances your operational efficiency or if it's just a shiny tool you are buying because, everyone else on LinkedIn is talking about it.
It really is a delicate balancing act. To wrap this all up, Deel is undeniably a remarkably powerful engine for navigating the absolute maze of hiring across 150 different countries. It solves massive logistical hurdles, it mitigates terrifying legal risks like permanent establishment, and it can profoundly improve the morale of your international talent.
Absolutely.
But it comes with real scaling financial costs, and as that London agency proved, it absolutely does not replace the need for an awake, engaged, and highly trained internal HR team to manage the human element. You still have to steer the ship.
And that reality leaves us with something much deeper to consider as the nature of work continues to shift.
What's that?
Well, if platforms like this continue to evolve and they eventually make the administrative act of hiring someone across the globe just as effortless and risk-free as hiring someone sitting right across the street, how will that fundamentally redefine what company loyalty, corporate culture, and team cohesion mean in the next decade?
Wow. Yeah, if the borderless illusion becomes a total frictionless reality and your talent pool is suddenly the entire human race, what actually holds a company together?
It's a very big question.
It's a fascinating question and definitely something to mull over as you look at your own team's structure tomorrow. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking the hard questions and keep learning.